Welcome, students. Our lesson today is how to build an atom. Now, our objectives are students will be able to understand how to build an atom, and students will be able to understand the three components of an atom, which are protons, neutrons, and electrons. Now, before we begin on our PhET simulation, I would like to go over some basic information. An atom is the basic unit of matter. An atom contains protons, neutrons, and electrons. Protons are in the middle of the nucleus of the atom. A proton is a positively charged particle. A proton determines the atomic number. Protons plus neutrons equal the atomic mass. Neutrons are in the middle of the nucleus, just like protons are. A neutron is a neutral charge particle. Neutrons plus protons equal the atomic mass, just like we said above. To determine the number of neutrons in an atom, you will subtract the atomic number, which again are protons, by the atomic mass of an atom. Electrons are on the orbital around the nucleus of an atom. An electron is a negative charged particle. To determine the number of electrons in an atom, you will need to know how many protons there are. The number of electrons equals the number of protons unless there is an ion. Now let's begin on our PhET simulation. On our PhET simulation, we will build an atom to make an element. So let's start off with the easy one, which is hydrogen. Now hydrogen is in the left upper hand corner. That means hydrogen is number 1. The atomic number of hydrogen is 1. So again, thinking back to our basic information that we were given, we know that there's 1 proton in hydrogen. And if there's 1 proton in hydrogen, we know we need an electron. Now, we know that there's 1 proton, which again is the atomic number, and since there's 1 proton, we know the mass is 1. So we go 1 minus 1 is 0, so that means we have no neutrons. And again, we can look here. There's no negative charge because we have a proton and an electron to balance out the atom, and the mass number is 1. Let's move on to one that's a little bit more difficult. We'll hide these again. Let's do lithium. Now lithium is right here. So 1, 2, 3. Lithium is the third element on the periodic table. So that means we will have 3 protons. 1, 2, 3. And that means we will have 3 electrons. And then we take the atomic mass, which is 6.94, and subtract it by how many protons we have, which are 3. That means we will have 3 neutrons, because 3 plus 3 equals 6. So, see, we have 6 is the mass number, and it's a 0 net charge because there are the same amount of protons and electrons. Now let's try and put a random number of protons and neutrons into the atom to see what kind of element we can receive. So let's put 9 protons in the atom, in the nucleus of the atom. And since we have 9 protons in the nucleus, we need 9 electrons around the orbital, on the orbital of the atom. And then we know that the mass of fluorine is 19, which means we will need 10 neutrons to equal the mass number. So let's see if the mass number equals 19, because remember, protons plus neutrons equal the mass number. And look, we have 19. Now the net charge is going to be 0 again because we have the same number of protons and neutrons. Now let's see if we can get a negative charge on this atom. So let's put in 3 protons, which will give us lithium. And lithium's atomic mass is 6.94, which means we will need 3 neutrons, because again, proton plus neutrons equal the atomic mass. Now, we want a negative charge, which means we want a negative ion. To make a negative ion, we will put more electrons than protons, because electrons are negative charged particles. So we want more negative charged particles than there are positive charged particles, which are protons. So we still have a positive ion because we had 3 protons. Now we have a neutral atom. So what we want to do is we want to add 1 more electron, because we originally had 3 protons and now we have 4 electrons. This means our atom, our lithium element, has a negative ion. Our mass number is still 6 because we have only 3 protons and 3 neutrons. But if we look here, our net charge is -1. Now let's build a positive ion atom. So since we want a positive ion atom, we need to have more protons than we do electrons. So let's say we want to build oxygen. Oxygen has 8 protons. And oxygen's atomic mass is 16, which we know we'll need 8 neutrons, because again, protons plus neutrons equal the atomic mass. And right now we have a positive ion, which is great because that's what we want. Now see, since there are 8 protons and we want a positive ion, we are only going to put 7 electrons. Because if we put 8 electrons, that means we'll have a neutral atom. But we want a positive atom. We still have a positive atom. Now see, we have a neutral atom, so what we're going to do is we're going to take away an electron, and here we have a positive ion atom. Now, going back, let's rethink what we just learned. Again, a proton is the atomic number of an element. Proton plus neutrons equal the atomic mass. The number of electrons equal the protons unless there's an ion that can either be a positive and a negative ion, what we just experienced. There will be an assessment on flickers.